derivatives of carboxylic acid. We are going to discuss three derivatives of carboxylic acid. So first is carboxylic acid salt. These are actually product of neutralization reaction between carboxylic acid and a strong base, wherein the hydrogen of the carboxylic acid on its carboxyl group will form bond with the hydroxyl group of the strong base so that they are going to form the side product water. And having that removed, having the hydrogen being removed from the carboxyl group of the carboxylic acid, the oxygen now will form bond with the sodium or the metal that could be found in the strong base. So the reaction will be producing the carboxylic acid salt. So this is the carboxylic acid part, and this metal is the strong base part. Okay, so always remember that carboxylic acid salts always have a metal on its structure, okay, because that would be coming from the strong base. Okay, so how are this example of this carboxylic acid salts? So this could be produced from the reaction of carboxylic acid, particularly example would be propionic acid reacting with sodium hydroxide. So mechanism, hydrogen will be removed from the propionic acid, same as with the hydroxyl group, be removed from the strong base. These two will form bond and produce water. On the other hand, the sodium will then replace the hydrogen. So we're going to have a carboxylic acid salt in the form of sodium propionate. So this is the sodium part and this is the propionate part. Okay. In naming this carboxylic acid salt, always we have to name first the name of the metal. So that is sodium. And then the word of the carboxylic acid part. However, we are not going to adopt the name of the carboxylic acid as is. Rather, we have to drop the IC acid and replace it with ATE. Such that, so this one would be, so we have to remove the IC acid and replace it with ATE. Okay, so that would be propionate. The propionic acid then become propionate, and overall the carboxylic acid salt for this reaction is sodium propionate. Okay, laging tatandaan, the sodium or the metal is the part of the strong base in this salt, and the propionate part is the carboxylic acid part on this carboxylic acid salt. Okay, another example. Reaction between oxalic acid and potassium hydroxide will produce potassium oxalate and water. Mechanism, hydrogen will be removed from the oxalic acid. So these hydrogens. And then we are going to need 2 moles of strong base because this is a dioic acid. This is composed of 2 carboxyl group. So the hydroxyls from the strong base, so 2 of them, will pair or will form bond with the hydrogen being removed from the oxalic acid. So 2 moles of water are being produced. And the potassium will now form bond with this open bond on this oxygen. So this one would be potassium oxalate. The potassium means it came from potassium hydroxide, and the oxalate means it came from oxalic acid. Still, the naming will be, look for the name of the carboxylic acid used, drop the IC acid, and replace it with ATE. So, the oxalic acid will be dropping the IC acid and then add the ATE. So that would be oxalate. And then adopt the name of the metal in the strong base. So that would be potassium oxalate. Always remember, you have to name first the metal, then followed by the ATE formed of the carboxylic acid. Okay. Now, what are the uses of these carboxylic acids? Carboxylic acid salts. Okay, so many are antimicrobials. These are compounds used as food preservatives, are actually carboxylic acid salt. So, meron silang antimicrobial property. Take note that being an antimicrobial, they do not directly kill the microorganisms present in the food. Rather, they just prevent the growth and proliferation of this organism by increasing the pH. So if they increase the pH, of course, the environment is not anymore suited for these microorganisms to live. That's why they are antimicrobials. Hence, they are going to prevent the spoilage and they are going to preserve the food. Now, what are these carboxylic acid salts that are being used as antimicrobials? Okay, so we have benzoate salts of sodium and potassium. Pag sinabi nating benzoate salts of sodium and potassium, it could be sodium benzoate or potassium benzoate. They are effective against yeast and molds in beverages like jams, jellies, pie, pie fillings, ketchup, syrups. But their concentration must be 0.1% mass per mass. Okay, so hindi aabot ng 1%, just 0.1%, very small concentration. So this is the sodium benzoate. We have the sodium there, and this is actually coming from the benzoic acid. So more likely, if you have to predict what would be the carboxylic acid and the strong base that reacts to produce sodium benzoate, coming from their name, it could be sodium hydroxide and benzoic acid. Okay, so we have potassium benzoate. This is the potassium, and this is the benzoate part. This carboxylic acid salt came from potassium hydroxide and benzoic acid. Okay. Another example would be sodium and potassium sorbates. Okay. So this is the sodium sorbate and the potassium sorbate. These two inhibit mold and yeast growth in dairy products, dried fruits, and sauerkraut, some meat, fish products. Okay, their concentration should only range from 0.02% to 0.2%. Okay, so very small concentration lang ang kailangan for them to be added in these products. Okay. Next would be calcium and sodium propionates. Okay, so we have calcium propionate. This is the calcium, and this is the propionate, and this is the sodium propionate. Okay, so calcium propionate could be coming from the reaction between calcium, sorry, calcium hydroxide, and propionic or propionic acid. And this is sodium hydroxide and propionic acid. Now, saan ginagamit ito? Antimicrobial in the baked products and cheese foods and spreads. Now, they cannot be used. Take note that benzoates and sorbates cannot be used in yeast-leavened baked products because they could affect the activity of the yeast. Okay, another example of these carboxylic acid salts are the salts of fatty acids. Okay, because fatty acids are long-chain carboxylic acid, and once they react with a strong base, they could become a soap. Okay, so soaps are salts of fatty acids, which in turn are actually carboxylic acid. Now, this example would be sodium stearate. So this is sodium, and this is the stearate. It came from stearic acid. This stearic acid reacts with sodium hydroxide to produce this carboxylic acid salt, sodium stearate. Now, hard soap contains sodium stearate, while as soft soap contains potassium stearate. Okay, so nagkaiba lang sila dun sa property ng strong as a strong base